with Bishop Joey Johnson, the pastor of the House of the Lord, and he has been a speaker at our conference for the past several years. Today we have him on tape. Bishop, thank you very much for taking time to speak to the young people.
Glad to be here, sir.
Young people dealing with a lot of things today, a lot of different issues. What's your basic message to our young folks?
My message is that, I think that the young people today have great potential. Unfortunately, with a lot of the stuff that is going on with millennials, that potential is being missed because we're probably focusing more on what they don't have than on what they do have.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that the stuff is negative. It's like, they don't want to have relationship. They don't know how to honor this. They don't know how to. So it's more on the negative than it is on the positive. And I think the positive is that the young people today are very, very interested in relationship. They're very honest. They're very open. At the same time, I don't think they know how to have a relationship. And so that makes it very difficult because we don't have the same kind of cross-cultural pollination that we used to have. When I grew up in church, you would be interacting with older people, so you have a role model in some instance, some sense. Mm-hmm. Well, today, the separation between the ages has made that there's not so much of a role model. So you have people of the same age trying to help other people of the same age. There is no experience, there is no wisdom, there is no. And so I think that with young people, they can be a bright tomorrow if we can help them learn how to take advantage of those things, how to become more genuine in those relationships, how to have those relationships, and I think some of it revolves around identity. When I was growing up, there was an identity in the church, an identity in my culture, an identity, so I got to know who I was. Well, all of those things have fallen out, so that now there's almost a lack of identity.
You've given me a lot of information, a lot of things to chew on. First of all, as a young person, how do you go about identifying an individual to be a role model?
Well, I think the problem is, that's one of the problems, that many of the people in our society no more are not interested in helping young people. They're interested in their own future. So a lot of people are just, society has caved in, society has become more inward focused, turned inward. We're not as interested in helping people. The society as a whole has become more negative, as we see what's going on in Washington, D.C., more negative, and so there's not the opportunities. But there are people that are going to come into your life, into your sphere of influence, that you can identify as having good character, as having good morals, as having some measure of success, or let's call it effectiveness. I don't like the word success, even though we use it a lot, because the word success tends to dictate a kind of material thing, but not necessarily a character thing. There are people who can be very effective who might not be rich, or who might not seem successful, but they're effective. The book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the author started out with the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And the more he looked at it, he said, I don't think that's the right word. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People can be very positive. So there are role models all around, and sometimes you just need to identify, as you say, look around you, see who's doing well, talk to those people, and just say, could you give me a little help here, a little advice, and create a relationship.
Mm-hmm. The relationship angle is so very, very important. Someone to model as you're growing up. How do you stay away as a young person, though? How do you stay away from all the negative influences that are out there today?
It's going to be very tough. I mean, that's going to be real, real difficult. Once again, the whole area of dealing with identity is wrapped up for most young people in their cell phone, in their personal information device. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that they are now beginning to track the impact of that, track the impact of constantly looking down, track the impact of how many endorphins you're getting every time you hit that phone, something's going on inside of you. And so what happens is that pushes you towards a certain stream of information that may not be positive. So you have to develop other avenues, or at least take this thing and use it in a more positive way and not let it drive you, but you drive it in the terms of your goals, in terms of your aspirations, in terms of your dreams, in terms of those kinds of things. One of the things that I do when I interact with people is a lot of time they look at me and I ask them, particularly leaders, I mean, what do you notice different about me? And they look at me and they can't figure it out. I said, well, just keep looking. What do you notice? They never get it. I said, I don't have a cell phone. Now, everybody that you know that's important is walking around like this, but not me, because if I'm going to interact with my cell phone that way, I can't interact with people that way. That is driving my life. I don't want to be driven by a thing or by the tyranny of the urgent, by somebody constantly calling me. And we used to do a thing, you probably remember when earlier on, where called multitasking. Everybody was multitasking. Well, now they've come out with brain research and said that you cannot do that. Something is going to suffer when you multitask. So you need to be able to narrow down, interact with people, figure out where you want to go. These are the ways that you're going to use the various avenues that are available to you.
In today's society, when young people are so tied to their cell phones, to social media and all of that, how do you get them to put it down? How do you get them to relax a minute? How do you get them to have that interpersonal relationship, which is not just over the internet or,
Well, one of the things that we have to do is this is going to be a difficult thing. And they're not going to put it down. So I'm glad we're having this interview and they're watching me, because they're not going to put it down because it's so important to everybody. But at least periodically you got to look up, periodically you got to set it aside in order to be able to take into consideration the things that are going on around you. Now, one of the situations that we run into all the time is people trying to text and drive. Now, that's a dangerous thing. But because we are so inundated by that box, by that machine, we don't think it is dangerous. And so even with me, I read this the other day and it was very interesting, that if you are using hands-free, you are still, something's going to suffer. So even if you're just talking and you're driving, you can't do two high-level things at the same time. You can't do two things that are demanding the same kind of attention. You have a low path to your brain and you have a high path. The low path is emotion. The high path is thinking. And you can't do two high path things at the same time. So you can't think about two different things. So what happens is one of them is going to suffer. And what the author said was so funny. He said what'll suffer is your talking. So you're saying stupid stuff, okay? Because you really got to drive, and even though your body can do autonomic reflexes and can drive without thinking, it's still using certain kinds of resources, and so that's a problem. So we have to determine, and I want to help young people determine, where do I want to go? How effective do I want to be? And if I want to be effective, then I have to make certain choices, and I need to move in that direction. So don't throw it away. You're not going to put it down, but at least I have to use it in a different way.
With that in mind, your advice for young people to be the best that they can be, to have that drive, that goal orientation, just to shoot for the stars and be the best.
They got to find a relationship. To me, relationships are the key to this whole thing. You have to find a relationship that inspires you, one that you can emulate, somebody that you can get some mentoring from. And then also, the people you surround yourself with are going to have a great deal of impact upon where you're going. If you're dealing with folks and they're all headed in this direction and you want to go in that direction, you better figure it out, because they're not going to take you in that direction. And so I think that there is the pressure of what's going on around you, the pressure of your friends, there's the pressure of society, there's the negative pressure that you get in the media. There's a lot of negative things, but I think the young people today have a wonderful opportunity to step forward and do something different. I think their heart can handle that, and they're moving in that direction. I think their sharpness in terms of who they are is moving in that direction. I think their ability to be able to look in the future drives them that way, but the relational component might be the key.
Bishop, do you believe in self-talk,
Sure.
visualization?
Sure.
How important is that?
I think it's very important. I think, unfortunately, we live in a society that does more thinking. We're a thinking-driven society, but the Bible is a visual-driven book. It's about stories, narratives, all that kind of stuff, metaphors. It's about the images that you get inside of your mind that drive you to where you want to go. Once again, this is a matter of using all the tools, not just a few of the tools that are there. And that means expanding your vocabulary, expanding your experiences, expanding who you interact with, so that you might be able to have those things.
Talk about the importance, with you being a man of God, talk about the importance of spirituality and having a relationship with the Father in becoming a total person, a total being.
Yeah, one of the problems of America is that we've picked out certain things that we believe are the key to, we're using the word success off and on, to success. And one of them that we are not picking on is spirituality. So we're going to deal with your intellect. We're going to make sure you go to school, do all these things. We may be doing some things with health, certainly physical health, but I'm talking about emotional health. We don't do enough in that area. And we are not hitting spirituality. At least at a medical level, they are now beginning to deal with the fact that if you can't deal with the whole person, you're not going to be able to get that person to move where you want to go. So you got to deal with